Hi, everyone. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Hey, look, I don't have my Princess Leia earrings on. I'm recording in a different way, so I don't need them. But I've got to listen to stuff coming from the speaker here and not from my headphones. Anyway, it's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my takeout, my Emil Amok's takeout, my takes on all things considerable, where we ask the question, what does an Asian American think? WDAAAT. What does an Asian American think about it? So much news happening today. And if you're on the West Coast, it started at 7 o'clock in the morning when the Supreme Court issued their rulings. We're going to talk about that, especially when people are talking about 14th Amendment, birthright citizenship. What does that mean? I mean, is it relevant at all? I mean, birthright citizenship? I mean, they're really pointing fingers at the judges, right? I'm gonna get rid of my music here. They're really pointing fingers at the judges, not at the 14th Amendment yet, but waiting for our connect. Oh, there. All right, so our connection is back, and we'll have Professor Dan with us. But I know that if you were watching the analysis from 7 o'clock Pacific time, you're wondering, all right, this was on a 14th Amendment case, birthright citizenship, but they weren't really talking about the merits of that so much as they were talking about whether or not national injunctions can be used by federal judges, district judges, to block whatever the president wants. And the significance here is that Donald Trump is like the most executive ordery kind of president, because executive order really is the American king, right? He can do whatever he wants. And it's during his term. And as long as, if no one stops him, he does anything he wants. And because we have a democracy of checks and balances, the courts have said, wait a minute, district judges have a right to stop something that looks illegal, that could harm Americans. And Trump said, okay, try that. We'll take it to the Supreme Court. They fast tracked it. It's at the Supreme Court. And 6-3 was the ruling. They said Trump can do it. The district judges can't stop him. So we'll talk to Dan Gonzalez about that. I also want to talk about Margaret Cho. You may have seen this on Facebook. I know that I'm on Facebook. I saw, hey, Margaret Cho is Filipino. She's in brownface. Brownface, black hair. She's got black hair. Margaret Cho, Korean American. She's an iconic Asian American comic. I love her. She's modern. And she's doing this thing, this rap, this monologue on Facebook talking about how Filipinos are so beautiful. And she's looking like a Filipino. I think that's a joke. I was laughing. But I was thinking, maybe some people aren't. So we'll get into that. We'll get into that today. Um, Welcome to my takeout. Also, we'll talk about Louisa Blue. I want to just talk about her right off the top, because I don't think I mentioned Louisa Blue right at the beginning, or right when she passed away. She passed away on the 6th of June, and yesterday was a memorial service for her. She was something. If you don't know who Louisa Blue is, and that's why I thought, well, let's stop and talk about her just for a second. Louisa Blue she was a critical care nurse, a nurse. And then she got into the union, and then she became one of the leaders of SEIU, and then she became she was appointed to the White House AAPI, whatever it is, forum that Biden held. That's now no longer, because now we're in a Trump situation and he doesn't see us. Louisa Blue was a pioneer, labor leader, and I didn't honor her, really specifically. and I didn't mark her passing. But if you're a Filipino American, if you're an Asian American, if you're an SIU laborer, worker, Louisa Blue, can't forget Louisa Blue, important person in our community. There was a memorial service for her in Hayward yesterday. And I just want to extend my condolences to my friends and family members who knew Louisa, to workers who knew what Louisa did. Very important, Louisa Blue. She passed away on the 6th. They had the memorial yesterday. I just found out about it yesterday, and I'm sorry that I neglected to mention the importance of a pioneer, a labor pioneer, Louisa Blue, Filipino American, from nurse to labor leader. Okay. All right. Now let's go back to the news. SCOTUS, the Supreme Court ruling today, 6-3 ruling on birthright citizenship. We bring on friend of the show, Daniel Phil Gonzalez, professor emeritus, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University, my friend, Asian American Studies professor, Filipino American Studies professor, and he always likes me to put him on the opposite side there. Hi, Dan. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good afternoon. In sort of
Yeah. Well, I mean,
SCOTUS decision. It really wasn't on birthright citizenship.
it
It
wasn't.
yeah,
But
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 but Sotomayor said, "Don't kid yourself. This will have an impact on birthright citizenship."
yes,
So tell me
yes,
how that works.
yes. Uh, well, she's anticipating that
Hmm.
the Trump administration is going to go forward
Hmm.
in defending their because lower court decisions have all said his uh, his exercise in executive authority was unconstitutional. You can't just it's a 14th Amendment, man.
Yeah.
All you got to
Yeah.
do is read the damn thing, and it says there you're born in the states. You're a citizen. You're a citizen of the state in which you were born, and you're a
Yeah.
citizen of the United States. So that's it, pure and simple. Now, people have challenged that, many times over the years, but somewhat ironically, right? The classic
Mhm.
case was Wong Kim Ark,
Yeah.
1898, and that case was came down in the shadow, of Plessy versus Ferguson. So the Plessy case said racial segregation is completely constitutional. Okay,
Right. Separate but equal is the
separate but equal,
phrase
separate
that we
but
know
equal,
Plessy.
and what they considered equal was very interesting. When you looked at equal, was black people got to go to school out of town, and it doesn't matter if they have desks, books
Yeah.
or anything like that. They got to have that's a separate but equal school. Okay,
Hmm.
that's the kind of hypocritical reality of that time. And so the Won Kim Ark case was exceptional because one, it was clearly defined what citizenship was, and it involved someone who was not white, right? Person of color who left the
Hmm.
country momentarily to return and then was denied reentry, okay, on the basis of the fact that he was Chinese and was not white. But there had been also 10 years earlier, right, absolute exclusion of Chinese
Right.
the United States. It started out in 1882. It was extended and expanded in 1888, and that continued all the way up to 1924 when they expanded the exclusion to all other Asians, exception to Filipinos. Okay,
Right.
that's how my father got here, and by extension, that's how I became a reality that the rest of the world now has to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moi aussi. I mean, my father came the exact time, 1928. He
Yep.
was allowed in, even though everyone else was excluded. So
That's right.
we
That's
we
right.
had some special privileges. We were colonized.
We were
So
colonized. The flag of the United States flew over the Philippines. Okay, so that was the context, right, of Wong Kim
yeah,
Ark.
yeah.
Also, the second thing was that was one of the few times that prior to World War II and after World War II, that Asians involved in court cases win anything. You know,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
one a few times.
I
Yeah.
mean, Wong Kim Ark was a San Franciscan, born in
Yes.
San Francisco, went to China, came back, and then was told, "Stop, you can't come back." And then he fought it, and the fact that he fought it and won, that
Yeah.
is an
That
amazing
was
thing.
exceptional, and
Yeah,
yeah, it was
in
doubly exceptional
1898.
because he was not only a person of color, he was the prohibited Asian, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's go fast forward 2025 today. They said district judges can't stop the executive orders of Trump or are limited. So what does that
No,
mean to
all this decision did was say you can't. It can't have a national effect. So a
right?
district
So
court decision of this regard cannot have a national effect. That's bad enough. Okay,
yeah.
that is bad enough. Okay, because
Mhm.
what it does is it forces plaintiffs um, to go to either sue in every state. That would really be interesting, wouldn't it? You know.
Yeah.
But essentially, what it said was a plaintiff in California, let's say, right, who gets a district uh, judge's decision in their favor, right,
Mhm.
that decision only applies to that plaintiff. It does not have a
And not
national effect.
it doesn't have national impact, but it does have an effect in the state, right? So
Yes, it does.
If a
Yes,
Californian
it does.
sues, all right. So right now there's orders that stops birthright citizenship from being law in a number of states. District
Yes,
judges have stopped it. So does that mean from here on the birthright citizenship is challenged in those states?
it can be. Yes, it doesn't mean it's automatic, but I think it's near. It's next to automatic because the Trump administration is going to push the issue. It's really
Yeah.
simple, right?
So
And that's
it's not.
exactly what
Yeah.
Sotomayor is saying, that you can expect that they're going to go forward with this challenge,
Yeah.
despite the fact that it's on its face unconstitutional.
All right. So what we're seeing is a place where, just like for every other issue that you may or people, not you necessarily, but some listeners may or may not like affirmative action, well, like abortion, certainly, or trans rights specifically. And now, in terms of birthright citizenship, it's going to be a state by state thing, right? It's going to be every state will be, I mean, you can be born in California and be a citizen, but heaven help you if you should want to go to Texas where they're going to fight this and say, no way, you're not a citizen. Or, North Dakota, South Dakota, or Utah, right? And is that the way to look at this at this point?
Well, yeah.
I mean, patchwork, it's going to be patchwork quilt nation, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's going to be up to the attorney generals of the different states, which is an argument that I've made over the last several months, right? That it's
Right.
going to come down to state challenges against unconstitutional exercises of federal power.
And,
That's what
and,
it's going to be.
and thank goodness California has a Filipino American, Rob Bonta, who's leading the charge on tariffs. He's leading the anti-tariff lawsuit. He's leading the charge on. I certainly he's going to be leading a charge on birthright citizenship. If he
Absolutely.
if he
You
hasn't
know, I
already.
mean, I he's well, no, he's third generation because I believe his parents were both born here. I know his mom was.
Were they born here? I didn't. I don't know. I thought they were immigrants. No.
Yeah, well, I'm not certain, but
I
at any rate, we know for sure he's at least second generation. He was born
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting. He's not only
Mhm.
Asian American; he's specifically Filipino. He came up via the assembly. A lot of us, including
Mhm.
I'm sure you as well as I, contributed to his campaigns. His
Oh,
chief of
don't assume
staff.
a journalist has contributed any money to anything.
Well, see, what we did was we're not supposed to, I guess, but
Yeah.
but
But members of the public and spouses and
as
stuff. I mean,
members,
look,
yeah,
Look, ethics of journalists. When you compare it to the ethics of Supreme Court justices, I think we're going to be okay. I think we're
Well,
okay.
yeah, and it depends on how you contributed too, right? You
Yeah,
know, whether I get we could have shielded ourselves by doing a pack, right? And
yeah.
you know, raising money that way. But
All
yeah,
right.
when he was running for assembly, I definitely contributed some money. Also, his chief of staff when he was on the assembly was one of
Mm.
my former students,
Well, that's nice. You can give him an A now in
Dean Graffilo.
retroactive,
Yeah, no,
retroactively.
he earned that a long time ago. He also was had a like Rob's mom had a labor union background, you know.
Yeah.
So these people are coming up and definitely representing the working class. Oh, and by the way, I really can't stand the fact that every time the Democrats want to say, "Here's where we got to go. This is the direction we want to take," they
Mhm.
say they say this, and you know, you're hoping they're going to say something really strong, right? And they
Yeah.
say we're for the middle class, and I go, what the hell's wrong with the word working class? What's wrong with
Yeah.
that?
Well,
Right?
middle class could be someone with a $300,000 income
That's
nowadays,
the
right?
problem.
I mean
That's exactly the
that's middle
problem.
class now. I mean,
That's exactly the
yeah.
problem.
I
And
mean, we're yeah,
but
but I got you.
even that
I
element of the middle class is now being suppressed again, depressed again. The way that it was over the last couple of recession cycles, right?
yeah. All right. But let me ask you though, going back to the SCOTUS ruling. Some people said, "Hey, don't." It's not a victory lap for Trump yet, but he is emboldened, and
Oh,
he
yeah,
really thinks that. I mean, this really, along with the immunity decision of last year,
yep.
with this, it says district judges can't stop, uh, whatever he does, his executive orders, and there's no one. I mean, it's now if the courts can't stop him, it's up to Congress, and we know how Congress is not there. The
Yeah,
Congress is not. They're not
it's
challenging.
worse than not there. The majority of Congress favors Trump's policies, favor this
Yeah.
administration's policies. Okay,
So
right now they're entangled in a internal battle over
yeah,
the big ugly bill, but
yeah, the
but
bub.
yeah, you know it's pretty bad. But anyway,
Yeah,
what really matters as well is that the Democrats don't have their act together. You
yeah,
know they've got a few uh, moderate and progressive people who are taking clear stands and are saying this is what we got to do. We got to listen to what the needs of the people are. And I know that we're going to talk about the Mamdani
yeah.
win in New
Mamdani. Yeah,
York, which is a
yeah,
good
yeah. But
indication.
Dan, after this ruling, there's no real clear path of action. I mean, people did the no kings thing and they saw, it didn't have Trump shaking in his boots. And they, even though there were millions
Well,
of people out there,
no, I think he
but
did. I think he peed in his shoes.
well, I think he
I think
might
he
have.
really he got upset. And I mean,
I'm
what's
sure.
the whole thing? What's I mean, dude, the guy called out federal troops.
Yeah,
The guy called out the state troops, National Guard.
I'm sure there are droplets on his shoes. But here's my point about about no kings. I mean, we really have if the judges can't do anything, and if
Well,
uh,
that's not quite
and
true.
well, if the judges are limited, right? We got to
Yes,
have the AGs have to step up, and you got
yes.
to have people litigating class action suits. So
There you
that's
go.
going to
You just
proceed,
said the
and
magic
maybe
word.
there's still room for justice somewhere.
Yes, it's just
Yeah,
harder.
class. Well, but also, but then you also, yeah, but you also have Congress as a possibility, which that's a long shot. But we have when you see a ruling like this. Oops, reconnecting. Okay, the real problem I think is it really does set up the divide between haves and the have-nots, and it all has to do with money. The oligarchs. This is a divide that shows here are the oligarchy and the elites, and here's the people.
There it
And
is.
how does Trump respond to the people, especially if he's going to sign this big ugly bill How's he going to respond to the people? 8 to 10, maybe 15 million people get lopped off of Medicaid. How does he respond? I mean, and then the lies are continuing because there was Trump just today saying, "Oh, the Democrats, they're going to affect Medicaid. They're going to cut Med. Oh, we're not cutting Med, but they are. They are cutting Medicaid." Uh, I'm just wondering,
Yeah, and the proof
how
of
do
that is
regular
that
people fight?
the proof of that is the action in North Carolina, right? Okay, so
No,
you got a governor and a legislature that said, well, no Medicaid, for abortion, and then
mm,
you had the Supreme Court say, yeah,
oh
that's
yeah,
you can limit all of that. So you have to look at everything, and the
mm,
American public is not willing to do that. They're not willing to work on protecting democracy, and the only thing that motivates them is when they get hit in the face by the problem. They got to get hit right in the face. And they haven't been hurt that badly. I'll just be
yeah,
straight up with you. They haven't
yeah,
been hurt that bad. Is inflation going up? Yes. Are
yeah,
prices going up? Yes. But it's incremental. They haven't
yeah.
gotten hit with a strong blow right in the face. And
Well,
that's
how about
going to happen. That will happen. It
well,
will
how about
happen.
how about this? Yeah, I agree. It will happen, but on the day of the SCOTUS ruling, headline in the New York Times, S&P 500 hits a record high, surging through Trump turmoil, meaning the people with money, and most people don't have their money in the stock market. They might have it in a 401k, but most people aren't playing in day trading and all that
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
They're not hedge fund managers. They're not either the customers of or running hedge funds, and so here we have the S&P 500 hitting a record high,
Yep.
and it signals that, oh, hey, this must be good for somebody, not the working class, but good for the people with the money, good for the people who are elites, good for the people who find themselves uh you know embracing Trump, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. If they are wealthy, they tend to be on that side. So what does a guy who is, making 50 grand a year with his wife who's making 50 grand a year, they're 100 grand a family, that's no longer really middle class anymore. I
Well,
mean
it
that
depends on it depends on region, right? It comes
yeah,
down to region, and even in the South, where there you could get a deal, right,
yeah,
on property, a home, and all the rest of that. That's
right,
changed
yeah,
because when when people started, it was a big deal, right? They said people are leaving California, man. Look at,
yeah,
and you know why? Because it's so screwed up, because
yeah, yeah,
Gavin Newsom and all these people, are screwing the state up. They screwed it sideways. And they're kind of right? Because
yeah,
our
yeah,
taxation is really horrible, and
yeah,
and we have to do something about reforming that process, okay?
yeah,
But it has to do with taxing the rich guys, the really
yeah,
rich people, and it has to do also with taxing corporations more fairly, particularly like Prop 13.
yeah,
Okay,
right,
there's
okay,
got
but
to be some reform.
all
All
right,
right,
but the
now,
the, the
so
point
we got
today,
people exiting California, they go to
yeah,
Texas, and guess what?
what,
Speculation in real estate goes up, especially around the big cities,
yeah,
Dallas,
Dallas,
Austin,
Houston.
right?
Yeah, I've seen
Houston.
it. Hey, look, I've seen the rise. I lived in Texas in 1980, and I saw when you could buy a house for like 30,000, forty thousand
Mhm.
dollars, and now you're seeing the same kind of speculation and the same kind. Well, there's a lot of land in Texas. That's the other
Yeah,
thing,
yeah, but it's
So
not all arable. It's not all arable, and it's
oh,
not
that's
all,
true.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not all
Eh,
friendly.
Yeah, if you want to live in say West Texas by a cyber farm for those
With
crypto
Yeah, with
crypto, yeah.
windmills that kill birds.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I just look, the bottom line though is if people are having a hard time, well, I don't know if they're having a hard time or not understanding what happened. The simple matter is executive power expanded. Executive power just ballooned. And Trump's confidence is ballooning. He's doing everything now. He thinks he's unstoppable. He's telling Canada, he just said to Canada,
Yeah,
hey, we're going to halt trade talks. This is going to embolden him to do everything that he wants to do. at every level. Get rid of immigrants, even without criminal records. ICE, go to town. Supreme Court's got my back. This was a signal to him. And the fact that Amy Coney Barrett, the Supreme Court justice who seemed reasonable maybe a week ago because Trump was really on her because she made some principled decisions, she was the lead on this. I think that was kind of a
That's a tell.
message.
It's a major
Yeah,
tell.
yeah. So, what about that executive power, Dan? Dan, what are we going to do about this expanding executive power in a democracy? Aren't people ready to stand up and say, no, we don't want this executive power expanded? Or that's not direct enough to make people change?
I think it's direct enough. I don't think that I think the Democrats again are not communicating it clearly enough and,
Yeah,
and directly enough. That's a problem.
yeah.
See, this has been going on, right? People say
Mhm,
the Republican Party has ceded, right, their their share of power. They're supposed to be an equal branch, right? And they've
mhm,
ceded that power to the president. Okay.
mhm,
And then they only go back as far as maybe GW Bush, right?
mhm.
And GW Bush was only an extension of Reagan for two terms, right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
had 12 years of Reaganism, okay? And people don't refuse to recognize. They think Reagan was a great guy. They
Mm.
refuse to recognize that both parties ceded power to Ronald Reagan at that time.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, both
and now
parties.
and
Okay,
now it's just it seems like the elites from both sides are ceding power.
yes,
The Democrats haven't figured out how to stand up. The people don't want it. The people are out there in droves in the millions, but it's unclear how effective they'll be if unless their leaders hear them. You hear some voices out there who are in the political class saying, yeah, let's act, and you can see them on the news, but they don't have the the political clout, the people behind them. I mean, they have the people, but they don't have fellow members of Congress behind them to make some action. So here's one question that I'm wondering what's going to happen. Um, all of this, everything, this is going to trickle down to everything Donald Trump does, from the raids to in L.A. and elsewhere, people getting round up, but also like something like DEI. You got today, the University of Virginia president resigned under pressure from the Trump administration because he wouldn't pull back on DEI, and now he knows, just like this is another uh, feather in the cap of the Trump administration. They went after Harvard, and Harvard stood up, but other people didn't. Now he have UVA falling, the president resigning. Trump is going after law firms. He's going after higher ed. This is a bad sign.
they're going after lower ed too. They're going
Yeah.
after all of that. San Francisco's superintendent. I am looking for what the positions are of board members, but the San Francisco Unified School District is
Mhm.
considering suspension of the teaching of ethnic studies
Yeah.
for credit
Yeah.
towards graduation, and so there it has been challenged there most recently, but the
Yeah.
challenge against the ethnic studies requirement in the CSU and UC system, that's been going on for several years,
Yeah.
and it was very anticipable, and the people who have been against it have been against it, most markedly because of the way they feel white people and Jewish people have been discriminated against, because there are elements of the history as taught via ethnic studies, right,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
are that bring up actual problems between the uh, Jewish position on Palestine, the Israeli position on Palestine, right,
Yeah.
and then all of the legislation, right, and court decisions in the history of California that have been against people of color.
Yeah.
They don't want any of that stuff being taught. That's what this fight is really about. When they say DEI, what they really mean is we don't want the facts of American history being taught if they cause critical perspective on white people, on
we
critical perspective on certain ethnic groups.
right.
That's what
We
they don't
want
want.
Yeah, we they want Americans to feel good about their racism. They want Americans to feel good about their past.
Yeah, well, that's already
Don't
happening.
wreck my self-esteem. If I'm a white guy, I don't want you to wreck white self-esteem, please.
I
You know,
want to be able to use the N word and any other racial epithet
it's
with
freedom.
complete ease and
It's total
freedom.
freedom. Total
Why should
freedom.
we be restrained from expressing ourselves freely, right?
First
When
Amendment.
that's the way
First
we
Amendment.
feel. That's the reality of our circumstance. That's the way we feel. We should be free to be able to do that.
A
Yeah.
First Amendment right. I mean, like
Yeah.
just like the ACLU, has played into that. They said, hey, look, remember Morton Grove, the KKK? You can go ahead and protest. That's all right. That's a First Amendment right. But I mean, I know the ACLU is filing a suit about this ruling or some kind of injunction over the 14th Amendment ruling today. But so we'll have to see what happens on the SCOTUS thing. As far as the DEI thing, uh, this guy Ryan, James Ryan, UVA, University of Virginia president, he said that, let's see, he was the ninth president in 120 years, resigned after the Justice Department became convinced he was negotiating in bad faith on ending the school's DEI policy. So if you have an inkling that you are a DEI person, oh, they just want you. We're going toward colorblind. Isn't that a good thing, Dan? We're going colorblind or just blind?
Okay.
I,
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people have said that, right? I don't see color in my life, right? I don't see
right.
color,
Yeah.
right? And
No.
then they turn around and say, but I do believe that certain groups have been advantaged by
Ah.
government policies and certain court decisions.
Mhm.
And then sometimes they even get specific and they say, I think that you have a greater opportunity to get hired than I do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've
And
heard
then
that.
I ask in what context, okay?
Yeah.
Because if it's a strictly a business context, and I have very low background in sales, right? I
Mhm.
worked as a sales clerk for a couple minutes, right, while I was in college, okay,
Mhm.
uh, and so I wouldn't qualify there. So and then you're going to tell me that because of who I am, I'm advantaged over you in that circumstance. I said I don't think that's the case, right?
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, if if there's a job opening for somebody who has a background in law and politics, uh, then maybe I do have an advantage, right? It depends on what your background is, okay?
Yeah.
But when you say that I don't see color, right? There's something wrong with that, all right? Because then you're ignoring as part of that analysis, right? The fact that our qualifications may be
Yeah.
different.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. When people say I don't see color, what they really want to say is, excuse me, what they really want to say is I don't see the law, I don't see any violation, I don't see discrimination, I don't see anything.
That's
We're
it.
we're all one. I mean, so we're all one and unified when they want, but we're all divided when they actually do their policies. And
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah, it's problematic. And it's problematic even when it comes to people that are well intentioned. You know, they're really trying to say what they're really trying to say is I am not racist. Okay,
yeah. Well,
that's it's as simple as that. You know, I'm not a racist. Okay.
hey, speaking of not being racist, we had Donald Trump this week dropping the F bomb. Uh, I don't know. He was talking about Iran and Iraq and
And
how
Iraq,
they don't
right?
know
They don't know what the
what
f
the
they're
F
doing.
they're
Yeah,
doing. And,
yeah.
this was, I mean, that was bad, but I think that was just his frustration. But using the F bomb, I think he discovered the phrase that pays for Donald Trump. I mean, that's sort of like, he could use that as his catchphrase. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't know what the f they're doing. They don't know. No, Congress, they don't know what the f they're doing. Democrats, they don't know what the f they're doing. ICE, they know what they're doing. They know what they're
Well,
doing.
see, he once again, that is something that his base is going to embrace.
Oh yeah, he's
They're
fighting
going to
back.
love that. They're going to
He's
love that.
fighting for me. All
Yeah,
right.
that's right up there with smash him in the head and carry him out, and I will pay. I will pay.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever fines I will pay for your court defense. I will do that. Right?
He
Just
did it.
just beat the hell out of him, please. Right?
Yeah, he did say that, and
Yes, he did
yeah, he did say it. I
more than
also think
once.
it's right. It's right up there also with grab them by the, you know what? Grab them by the bussy. Just put the P in there. Grab them by the bussy.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, I think it belongs in the Trump Hall of
Yeah.
Phrase fame,
Yeah, it
and
certainly was not penis. It certainly was
he
not. It
doesn't
was
know.
a p
He
word,
wasn't
and it
grabbing
wasn't
that.
penis.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
It
He
wasn't
maybe he
penis.
might
It
have.
wasn't peanuts.
No,
It
it
wasn't.
was. But he was grabbing, and then so he dropped the f bomb. But then there was Emil Bove. Emil Bove dropped the f bomb, or it was revealed. Now this is a good
Oh
case.
God!
This is a good case, but because people probably didn't get into this. Emil Bove is the personal lawyer of Trump. Actually, in the Emil Club, if you go to Wikipedia and you say look at all the Emils, there's an Emil Club, and I'm trying to get all the Emils together to try to somehow excommunicate Emil Bove. Uh, Emil Bove is the personal lawyer who became a Justice Department official. Trump is now appointing him to an appellate
Appellate
judgeship,
judge, yeah, federal appeals court.
and that's like the second highest court, right?
Yep,
I mean, right after the Supreme Court.
yep.
So he's like, this is like a plum thing for a lawyer, a whistleblower, the same whistleblower who said, hey, Kilmar Abrego Garcia shouldn't be deported because the government made a mistake. This guy, this whistleblower, uh, brought it to the attention of Congress. He has lawyers. He said Emil Bove said to go f the justice system, or he
F
used
the
the f
judges.
word.
F the
Yeah,
judges. Yeah.
f the judges. I just think we're getting the people using the f word are winning. If the whistleblower has no impact, and if Emil Bove gets on the court, if Trump gets his way today after dropping the f bomb, and
I
the
think one of the great blessings of texting
yeah,
is that you don't have to use the F word anymore. You just say WTF. I
WTF,
mean, it's
I
really,
do,
and I was using that in the classroom, right? There would be people disrupting the class because they'd be talking way in the back, right?
yeah,
And I'd say, "Hey, STUF," right?
yeah,
Or STFU rather. And then
STFU.
some of
Oh,
them
that's a
who were
school in Florida.
unfamiliar with
S,
text language would
yeah,
have to have it explained to them.
yeah,
What does he mean, STFU? You
STFU. That's a university in Florida I taught in.
know?
Yeah,
But anyway,
STFU.
so they're getting accustomed to doing this. The important consideration, I didn't really care that he said F the judges. What I care about is the attitude. It's not the words. It's the
It's
attitude. What he's saying is that you don't have to do those
what
orders. You don't have to be held responsible
you don't. Yeah,
for holding two court decisions.
you don't
That's
have.
that's freaking insane.
Yeah,
Okay?
he's saying you don't have to do what's right. You don't have to do uh, moral, ethical protocol. You can do whatever you want. F the judges.
Well,
It speaks.
F the Constitution. F the
Oh
Constitution.
yeah,
You know, that is
F.
that is checks and balances is not that that's you don't have to worry about that. You can
Yeah.
ignore
Well,
that. I mean,
it,
he did it with emphasis. He
yeah.
did it with emphasis. He's not just encouraging people; he's commanding people
Yeah.
to be
This is the
unconstitutional.
thing. This is the thing about Trump and Bove. It goes to the character
There
of the
you go.
people.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
you know, people throw that thing about, oh, I don't care about race. I care about the content of their character. Well, okay, so you don't look at race, and then what do you look at? What do you see when you see Donald Trump? Do you see a man of high character? I mean, oh, we don't look at the color of their skin, but the content of their character. What is the character of Beauvais? What is the
And yeah, but
character of
and who
Donald
are they
Trump?
quoting? They're quoting MLK Jr. Okay, when they do
Yeah.
that, okay, so they're trying
Oh.
to. It's like, uh, it's like quoting Jesus. They do that a lot too, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Well, the moral
but
majority, right? Or the
oh yeah, oh
theocracy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if you
They
mention
love
the
to do
eight
that.
beatitudes and feed the poor,
Oh, the poor?
they have a
Oh, do
little.
they vote? Do the poor? If you make the poor vote,
No,
they'll feed them.
if they were at the Sermon on the Mount, they probably would have choked on the fish bones. But
Yeah. Oh
anyway,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they so
So uh, I wanted to mention Beauvais because like he's an Emil, and I hate the fact that there's
the
not
guy,
many of us.
yeah, the guy looks like a criminal though. I mean, he's look at
You
him.
know.
I hate to
Oh,
say
hey,
that, but he
yeah,
just
but now
really,
you gotta watch out because look, here's the other thing I want to mention. We'll talk about Mamdani in a second, but
okay.
uh, California Governor Gavin Newsom sued Fox News today for $787 million, accusing the outlet of defamation in its reporting on a phone call between him and Trump. And Fox called the suit a transparent publicity stunt. But this is what I mean. When I first heard it, and I've met Newsom. We've had personal conversations. I not about this, but I'm just saying I actually kind of applauded the fact that he's suing. This is a Trump play, right? This is what Trump did. Trump sues a news organization, like he's suing 60 Minutes, like he's suing CBS, like he's suing, and 60 Minutes or ABC, like he's suing ABC. And I just think it's about time someone from I think what Gavin Newsom wants to do is he wants to be the Trump of the left. I think he want, and that might play. That might play. It's not that he's you know right wing or anything like that, but he wants to be aggressive in the way of Trump, and I actually applaud Gavin Newsom for doing this.
Yeah, I me too. I think this is cool.
I
I
mean
don't
that
know if
he's suing
it
suing
furthers
Fox.
his interest.
Someone's got to sue Fox. Someone's got to sue
Yeah,
Fox.
yeah, and other people have been successful. You know,
Yeah, I just hope that he settles out of court and then more money for the campaign. Or look, Fox is not um immune to loss. They lost a libel suit in
sure.
the in that electoral election machine
Yeah,
suit,
Dominion case. Yeah.
Dominion. So it's not like they are, they don't screw up. They will again,
Well, they
and
screw up all the
uh,
time. The question is somebody going to hold them to account? And so
ah
that's why we're cheering Newsom on. He got to
yeah.
do that.
Well,
Whatever his real
but
motivation might be, I think he gains in
yeah.
both directions.
But
So
what if it's the judge? What how about the judges, the courts? What if the courts throw out Newsom's suit and say yeah, because the courts are maybe this is the SCOTUS ruling here is a message from the courts or to judges that hey, you could throw out anything that's anti-Trump. We're all pro-Trump now.
right, right, yeah,
I mean that would be bad.
yeah. I
Uh,
just don't think it's really true. I think years ago, during the during the first Trump
mm,
presidency, I said people are scared because they have so effectively stacked the courts.
mm,
And what I said on Twitter was real simple.
mm,
Uh, just because they're Federalist Society appoint nominees
mm.
and they're Republican Party nominees and Trump appointees doesn't mean they're going to decide in his favor in all
Yeah.
terms. In fact, a lot of very conservative judges made decisions against Trump.
Mm,
I think the best example is probably their attempts to overturn Obamacare.
Hey, speaking of
You
it,
know, I
speaking
mean,
of, I've got to step away for a second. Keep talking while I'm stepping away about the Medicare thing and why that's real. Because, if Trump wants, Obamacare could be overturned slowly, in this big, ugly bill. Uh, but tell me about what's going on here, and why July 4th, we might see an end to Medicaid and 10 million people, without Medicare.
yeah, I don't know if you see an end to Medicaid, okay, but you'll see it sharply reduced, the distribution. They're just going to cut the budget. It's that simple, and they'll make up rules. I think one of the things that they say they're going to do is they can find several $100 million that people who are either committing fraud or who don't qualify. That's different from committing fraud intentionally, right? But they're going to find that there's a lot of people who don't qualify, as well as people who are committing fraud and intentionally, right? And shouldn't be receiving Medicaid.
Well,
Now,
go ahead.
the thing
Hmm.
is, whether if they enforce that position the way that they're enforcing the tax on people who are suspected of being quote illegal,
Yeah.
right? Okay, then
They're just going
you're
after,
going to be seeing,
yeah, they're just
yeah,
going after
and so there's
everybody.
going to be multiplicity. There's going to be all kinds of lawsuits, and we just talked about the possibility of class
Yeah.
actions. You're going to see huge class actions by groups of people who get cut off Medicaid. That's one, right? And
Yeah.
the other thing is the attorney generals of the states that have already filed lawsuits will now be also enabled to file more lawsuits, right?
Yeah.
Based on the effect that those cuts have on their residents, on their state
Yeah.
residents. Okay.
Yeah. This whole thing is, when you undo things in America, it's not easy. It may seem easy because you got the courts and you got Congress in your back pocket, but ultimately, the struggle has to trickle down to regular folks who stand up and say,
Yep.
"Yeah, we're part of a class. We're standing up. We feel
Yep.
it now." And but there's some people who look at what's going on, and I think Pew came out with a study. Everyone's trying to say, well, how did Trump win? And he won by luring enough Hispanics, luring enough women, luring enough blacks, but mostly Hispanics to come over to
Yes.
his side who don't care about the whole, who don't care about, they don't have 60s civil rights mentality saying, hey, what about us? What about all of us? They don't have that united sense. They have, hey, let's get our own. Let's get, it's an entrepreneurial, individualistic thing. And that runs counter to, oh, it's all of us together. We love each other.
Well,
We're
they've also got
working.
an inclination. They've got an inclination to the right, the same
Yeah.
way that, for example, what's the biggest Asian population that voted in favor
Oh,
of Trump?
well, the
It,
biggest Asian, it was actually Vietnamese.
yes, it was.
Yeah,
And why
yeah,
did
followed by
Vietnamese have those kind of attitudes?
yeah,
Because they're really anti-communist, right?
yeah, yeah,
So how about Cubanos?
yeah.
You
Oh,
know, I
also,
mean,
hey, and let's not forget the Filipinos. We were the
sure, sure.
second largest Trumpers. So
Also,
I mean,
also anti-communist. Yes.
yeah, yeah. The Filipinos are
Yeah,
anti-communist.
there's nothing. Yeah, being anti-communist is one thing, but associating
Mhm,
everybody on the left, even
mhm,
moderate centrist left, right?
mhm. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
with communism, that's the problem. That's the
yeah.
problem. They're too
Hey,
broad a definition of who's a
I look,
communist.
as long as we're
Yeah,
talking
Mandani.
about communists. What about socialists, democratic socialists like Mamdani? Now,
Yep.
when he's won, they haven't officially said it yet because they got to go through ranked choice voting.
That's right.
But I don't know why they can't just immediately know the ranked choice. Maybe they're covering the counting absentees and whatnot. But I really don't like ranked choice voting. And I this is not to say I don't like Mamdani. I like Mamdani, but I think when you talk about ranked choice voting, I like to see two candidates face off one, at each other, debating each other, because when you start taking the votes of the second place people of the also rans, you don't really have a fair proposition when people ask, well, you can say rank the candidates according to how you like them, but it's just not the same as if you have, a face-to-face runoff between the two highest voters. And I'm convinced that someone could actually game ranked choice voting so that it kind of diminishes whatever advantage you think saving money of the
Sure, you can have
uh,
mutual agreements. You can have mutual agreements among two or three candidates
yeah,
that I'll rank you number one if you rank me, number two,
number
and
two.
then
I
yeah,
want to be your number two.
you
I
know
want
that,
to now. That's
and
something
you could
that
do
few
that in
people.
series. You could do that in series. There could be people
Yeah,
that do that all the way down the line, and it could result in someone who actually only is fifth in actual ranking on the
yeah.
first tally. Right? It could move them all the way up to second place.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look what happened in Oakland. You had Cheng Tao campaigning with someone else, saying, "Look, I'll be your. We'll vote. We'll both be our number two." And when it came down to the round for that candidate, who is now no longer viable, it was just Cheng Tao and Lauren Taylor. Shangtel got 8,000 votes, number two votes, and that catapulted her over Lauren. It was very close between Taylor and Shangtel. And
And look how it
now
worked
here's
out.
what
And look how it worked out.
exactly. I thought I don't want to knock a thing that helps marginalized communities get representation,
That's the
but
other side of it. That's
yeah,
absolutely correct.
but what happened
It
is
does
there's going to be
increase
people.
representation. It does increase participation. Theoretically,
Yeah.
it increases. But if enough situations occur, like the Centau situation in Oakland, right, it will
Mhm.
turn people off to ranked choice.
Well, I'm turned off. I thought Cuomo may have conceded early because who knows how many. But see, it all depends on how he campaigned. So this is what brings me back to ranked choice, not just because people from underrepresented communities can be represented. You always talk about money. Ranked choice does affect how much money you spend or don't spend. You can have a better result by creating coalitions with other candidates and not spend as much. I mean, Cuomo outspent,
Oh yeah.
Mamdani like 4 to 1, 5. I mean, it's some ridiculous number because hey, Mamdani was doing a lot of viral stuff, but like I said, if you had a candidate saying, "Look, I'll be your number two," you know, vote for me number two, and things will work out. If you don't like, Mr. Jones, who I'm saying next to, vote me number two, and I'll help you.
Yep.
You build coalitions. That's a positive thing, but I'd much rather have people, if there's the top two, let them go head to head because they will say things differently in a top two situation than in, you know, a multi-candidate
Well, I think
thing.
it's still possible that that could happen, but it only could happen if the final tally was really close.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, like I said, Cheng Tao had 8,000 votes in one round where it really put her over the top ahead of Taylor in Oakland. Who knows what'll happen in New York? But all right. So, ranked choice voting aside, Mamdani, I think he's actually could be a pretty good candidate, but he's scaring the hell out of Democrats who are, wealthy people and they're not working class. And what do you think is going to, and a lot of people throughout the country are saying, oh, is this the Democrats' new face now?
Right. Are they going to be? Are they going to all be democratic socialists, and then they get to be called communists?
Yeah.
And not
Well,
only that, not only that, he is
mhm.
a loud spokesperson for the condition of Palestinians.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I
So,
thought he had a good answer from, you know, is he for a Jewish state or is he for, he said he was for equality. I
right.
mean, as soon as you start talking about equality, you say, "Oh, let's make sure everyone is treated fairly, Palestinians and Jews. Let's make sure that no one is discriminated against."
Yeah, the problem I have with that response, I think you're right. For the American, that was a good answer.
Yeah,
But the
yeah,
reality is that that equality, one state Israeli political position is right. We don't want two
yeah,
states. We want one state. Don't worry, everybody could believe that.
yeah.
After seeing the last 50 years, the treatment of Palestinians, right? Then you're going to also believe that the Mossad didn't
Mm,
know that October 7th was happening. You know,
yeah.
you know,
Well, I
the,
think.
The Mossad did all kinds of intelligence. They set up. It took years to do the pager attack on
Mhm,
Hezbollah, right?
mhm,
It took years to figure out how they could infiltrate Iran well enough to be able to take out their air force defense. I mean,
mhm,
the air defense.
yeah,
The U.S. went flying in virtually uncontested. Nobody got fired on, right?
yeah,
So they were ready to be fired on, right? But they
yeah.
didn't get fired on, and everybody got back okay. Now
Well,
that
well, what?
indicates that indicates a very strong intelligence system. It also indicates a very strong military strategy. And then you're going to tell me that Mossad and the Israeli government leadership didn't know, you know, that
All
October
right. Well,
7th was going to happen.
let's get back to Mamdani. Does he have what it takes to defeat the Republicans? There are not as many Republicans in excuse me, in New York. Excuse me. Does he have what it takes to beat them? And all the other Eric Adams. You know, if you didn't like Cuomo, well, you certainly aren't going to like Adams. You know,
Yeah, it's a corruption versus socialism. Right.
well, so or Democratic
So
socialism.
corruption's better. At least it's capitalist.
Well, there's going to be some people who make that argument. Well, I want
At
to.
least it's capitalist.
Well,
Well, the New York Times is making that argument. Obviously, Wall Street Journal is going to make that
yeah.
argument. So yeah,
Well,
uh,
you know,
New York Times editorial.
as a point, 6 degrees of separation. I actually uh, know Mom Donnie's mom, so I have a connection to Mom Donnie. Mom Donnie's mom, it was in. I took classes with Mom Donnie's mom, and lived in the same co-op house. A co-op house with like 50 people. So we made dinner together and ate together on certain nights. I mean, so I was surprised when I saw that, and I wish him well. He's a smart guy, young guy, 33. Maybe he's got a shot. I don't know. It depends upon the kind of money that pours in to try to stop him, and the kind of attacks he's going to
Yeah,
face. I think.
his if his ground campaign expands,
Mm,
if it continues and it expands, he's got a shot even against money. Okay,
yeah,
that has won. Wisconsin was a good damn example of that, right? They
yeah,
threw gazillions, hundreds of millions of dollars into those campaigns, and it was just for
yeah,
judges.
yeah. Well,
It was just about
well,
judges, right? It was.
I think
It wasn't about the Senate, or anything.
I'd like to.
So he's got a shot.
Yeah, I'd like to see
It,
it.
it all comes down. It comes down to whether or not the other portion of the Democratic Party rallies to his side. Okay,
Mm,
that's what it comes down to. And what you have now is a generational schism that they have been trying to play down.
mm,
right? The Democrats have not been willing to say, yeah, there is a generational schism. You have some Democrats that are sort of in the
Mm,
middle. They're like in their 50s. They're not in their 70s,
mm,
right? They're or older,
yeah.
right? And they're saying, well, it's time for a new generation. Okay, that's as close as they've gotten to the criticism,
Yeah.
right? I even AOC has not said, you know, the old folks got to get off the pot. You gotta wise
Well,
up and understand that you need to encourage younger people to move
well,
up, and that's what has to
well,
happen. You
she
know.
can't be too down on older folks because she's campaigning with prime social democrat or democratic socialist.
Yeah, but he's a social
Yeah.
democrat. He's a social democrat, so that like doesn't, yeah, he's old, but he's a social democrat, man. He's in a lot of ways he's further left than she is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You
Well,
know.
I hope Mom Donnie uh, get some traction overall. I think in New York he won big. I don't see people turning out for Eric Adams, and he did it by concentrating on two things that are important: affordability and safety. And I know this from staying in New York when I do my performances. Man, New York is, you worry about how safe you are in New York a lot of times, right there in Manhattan. And you also worry about the affordability, and so when he talks about lowering rent, he talks about food, state run grocery stores, when he talks about, uh,
Free
free
buses,
transit. Yeah.
free
I mean,
transportation, yeah.
I think he touches a nerve.
Childcare.
Oh,
He
free
mentioned
childcare.
childcare.
Yeah, he touches a nerve. I think he's got a winning. Well, we'll see what
Well,
happens.
those are not just New York
Oh
issues.
yeah, I mean you could.
Childcare is a national issue that started becoming a national issue when our generation,
Yeah,
right, had kids,
yeah,
because already it was expensive, and then the when if we were going to continue to work,
mhm,
and a lot of us had dual income
yeah.
families, right, where our spouses
Mhm.
worked, okay, you had to get childcare,
Well, it
and that was expensive even
well,
then. Now it's ridiculously expensive, and a lot of states refuse to fund
yeah.
it. Okay, so then now this Department of Education, they want to wipe that out.
Well, see, look, you need some kind of subsidy or some kind of help because if you're only making
That's
if you're
right.
only making whatever 18, 20, $30 an hour, but you're giving more than half of that to a
It's
babysitter.
the whole issue is parallel. It's parallel to the Medicaid
Yeah,
issue,
yeah,
right? It's not just about people receiving direct benefits, it's also about the
yeah,
institutions that Medicaid
yeah.
supports,
Eh,
right? And that means, you can't have senior housing if you wipe out the businesses that are running the
See,
housing, you know?
this is one of the reasons why Trump is happy that he can say no tax on tips, like he's the a fan of the working class person. Very few people make tips. That's number one, and the tip economy is not as much as people might think, and certainly the people who are struggling. There may be some who have are waitresses and or servers, and they rely on tips, but for the most part um, that's just something that Donald Trump can use to make it look like he's for the workers, but he's not. He's not for the workers, and you know, let him talk about daycare, daycare for workers versus no tax on tips.
Sure.
That's significant. Not no tax on tips. Okay, in the time we have remaining, and I appreciate you being here again, Dan. Uh, I don't know if you saw Margaret Cho on Facebook, but I saw her on Facebook. I like Margaret Cho. I think she went to my high school. I think she went to Lowell. We're both San Franciscans. She's a comic, iconic comic, very funny, but she's in Filipino face. She's in brown face and black hair. And she does this, she looks into the camera and says, Filipinos are so beautiful. God had a good day. God had a good day when he made the Filipinos. The Filipinos are pure poetry, the men and the women. This is no contest. This is not saying that, Some people are better, but the Filipinos are. It's an appreciation of Filipino beauty. I think it's funny. It's a satire. She could be making fun of our vanity. She could be making fun of our beauty in a positive way because Filipinos love beauty queens. But when I saw her, I laughed and I said, "So, I replied on her social media post. I said, "So, Margaret, are you transitioning to Filipino?" And because it was such a, and I said, and if you are, keep in mind, as Filipinos, we claim everyone. We claim everyone. We love, if you're just a part Filipino, like the guy in the NBA, Dylan Harper, who came in, who was picked second, people say, hey, he's half Filipino. Olivia Rodrigo, hey, she's half Filipino. Hey, Joe Coy is even half Filipino. Did you know that?
Right.
He's
Yeah.
half Filipino. Darren Chris, who won a Tony, half Filipino. Nicole Scherzinger, the Pussycat Doll, Tony winning actress. She, I believe, is half, maybe part, because she says she's Filipino, Ukrainian, and Hawaiian. So, you know, we claim all
Right.
Filipino.
So we don't know which way that Ukrainian thing happened, right?
Yeah.
So we don't
Well,
know.
I don't know. I like Nicole Scherzinger. She's good.
Oh, she's
She's
great.
great.
She is blowing Broadway
Yeah.
away. She's
Yeah. Yeah.
fantastic,
She's a
actually.
great singer. She's a great singer, great actress.
Yeah,
Sunset
and
Boulevard,
she has improved over time. She has improved over time. I mean, she you know,
Pussycat Doll,
Pussycat Dolls. It was
She was on
but
She was on
now
American Idol
she's
for a
just
while.
outstanding, outstanding
Yeah.
singer.
So I
And actress
so
now.
what do you think, Margaret Cho? I mean, when I saw it, I laughed, and I try to do comedy now. I do stand up. I do my solo shows, opening up in on the 14th, July 14th in Winnipeg with my solo show. I like Mark. I mean, in the past, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I don't think I could have I would have I might have taken offense at Margaret Cho. I said, "Why are you making fun of Filipinos and our beauty?" I would have not seen the humor. I think. What do you think? Are you going to cop to it too, or am I the only one copping to it?
Eh, I think she was poking fun,
Yeah,
and
but I
but
would have taken
it's pretty
offense. I
mild.
would have taken offense.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty mild.
Well,
It's pretty mild, and she's yeah. I think that's mild. I think I'm much harder
yeah,
on Filipinos than she is. I
I
mean, if
know.
by making fun, I mean she starts out with the line,
There's
uh,
no con,
"It's not a
not
contest."
contest. Yeah.
It's not a contest.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I know it's fairly,
and, you know,
mild, but I know that 10, 15, 20, maybe 20 years ago, I would have said, "Hey, come on. It's not like there's so many Filipinos who are successful. Don't make fun of us. You don't make, and I would have now it's different though. If it was, I mean, Margaret Cho is also Asian. So I know she gets it. But if she were
she must be. She went to
yeah,
Lowell.
but I mean, but if she were Nikki Glazer or some white comic in brown face and black hair, I would that's crossing the line. That's offensive.
Uh,
If
yeah,
you're a white comedian doing that,
yeah,
if you're
yeah,
Annie
yeah,
Poehler,
yeah. That's the chart. That's the Charlie Chan
yeah.
problem. Yeah.
I mean, then I would. So I marked her video as a point where I have seen my growth, not you know ragging on comedians have a right to say what they want, and as offensive as First Amendment-y as they want, that's my belief. Now, especially working in that field, sometimes I believe that. In the past, I would have lost my public sense of humor, and now I think I feel like you. Hey, smile. I It's okay. She's a comic. She's funny, and I'm glad she helped me get over my inability to have a public sense of humor about it.
I think I think 30 years ago I would have definitely, you know, protested
Yeah.
her what she did. because she wasn't that funny. Her stuff was she wasn't that
Oh,
funny,
wait a minute.
and it
She was funny
yeah, man,
talking
she
about her
wasn't.
mom. All the
You
jokes
know,
about her.
she
No,
was not that funny.
no, the jokes
A
about her
lot of
mom.
stuff. Her
I'm
stuff was internal. Her stuff was internal, and it was Korean grandma
and
stuff. You know,
mom.
we all do those kind of
Dan,
jokes. We all do those kind of jokes. And she was just
all right.
okay. Some of the stuff that she did was really pretty
She was
funny.
funny. She was funny.
But when she made the mistake. Well, you know, I can't call it a mistake,
All right.
right? Uh,
Don't call it
uh,
a mistake.
when well, she went for the TV
Oh
show,
yeah, yeah, yeah. This All American Girl. Yeah.
and 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 it was horrible.
Well,
You
no,
know,
it
I mean,
wasn't
even
horrible.
though
It was good. It was good. But it
yeah,
was a sitcom. That's the problem. Hey Dan, we're gonna run out of battery here. I have my
okay,
bad show.
good. We
So
gotta go.
listen.
You're just doing this because you don't want me bad mouthing
No, no,
Margaret. So that's fine.
no, I love Margaret Cho. I love all comics, and I think having worked on stage as a comic and as a solo performer, I get what she's doing. Like I said, the line is,
I think she's really good
yeah,
now. I think she's great
yeah,
now.
well,
I think her delving into acting
yeah.
really improved her comedy, her stand up.
Well, I think I always found her funny. I think that the line here for me is, like I said, if it was Amy Poehler doing it, or, what's her name? Uh,
Not a non
a
Asian.
non-Asian, yeah. I mean, I think that would not be funny. But Margaret doing it, and
How about a half African American Filipino?
I
Is it okay as long as you're half, right?
if
Just
you
like
got
joke
some
play.
Filipino cred, I mean, remember, we believe in essentially our Filipino one drop rule, which is a little bit of
oh,
patisse,
oh
a
boy.
little bit of patisse, and you're in. You can eat the fish head. You can eat the fish head. The
Yeah,
the
but this
dog,
is weak.
maybe,
But this is weak, man. You got to go with
the
bagong,
bagong, of course, the
bagong
bagong, or
aramang.
the mang tamas. If you got
Yeah,
the mang tamas, yeah,
yeah.
okay, all right.
Or my favorite is Cebuano.
Oh, Cebuano. Oh,
Sisi.
yes.
Sisi. Are
Oh,
you familiar with Sisi?
yeah, yeah. But you see, now you got to drop the Cebuana because the Cebuanas are all beautiful people. Now, she didn't get into the ethnic thing.
oh
She
no.
didn't get into
Here
the
we
ethnic
go.
thing saying, oh, the Visayas
Here we
are so
go.
much more beautiful than the Ilocano. The Cebuanos, the Visayans, oh, they're beautiful. Not like the Ilocano. The Ilocano, not so beautiful. Oh, but
Yeah, right.
the Ilocano, oh, not Pogi. No, no, but the Visayans, the Visayans. Oh. All right, Dan.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. Hey, Dan.
That
Thanks, man.
sounded like you got Imelda
Yeah,
disease.
I know. All right, so we'll get together again. I got it. We're gonna lose
All right.
battery. So
All
power
right.
to you, my man.
I mean, you know, let's yeah, that was good. That's good. Regards to
All
Margaret.
right. All right.
And regards to
All right.
Kathy. Take care,
Thank you,
man.
man. All right, there he goes. Daniel Phil
Thank
Gonzalez, my friend, talking about you got to come to the end of the show to really get the gist of what we're talking about each and every week. Anyway, that's it. That's it. No special effects. We don't. I don't even have the swisher. Um, thanks for tuning in. Catch us on at Emil Amok one on YouTube, on Twitter X at Emil Amok, also on Facebook at Emil Guillermo. I think that's it, or emilguillermo.media. Oh, you just catch me on Facebook. Hey, I'm gonna go see some comedy tonight. I'm gonna see Maria Bamford tonight and Jackie Cation. They're in town, so yeah, I can go see them. And then tomorrow, hey, George Lopez is coming to my town. I gotta see George Lopez. Gotta see him. I'm not opening for him or anything like that. Anyway, I am going to be at the Winnipeg Fringe, July 14th. So watch my different places, and I'll tell you how to get tickets if you're in Winnipeg. I know a lot of people like Winnipeg. Hey, look, thank you for being here. We send out the love. Because you send it out, this is what my mom said. You send out the love, it comes back twofold. Twofold, it comes back twofold. So, As I wish for me, I wish for you. And may you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal